Hey, Rafael Cortez here with another episode of the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Today, we're sitting down with Mr. Sean Doyle, an author, speaker, and advisor. And he's a marketing genius. He's the principal at FitzMartin Inc, a leading consultancy focused on sales, marketing, and management. All right. So we're going to be tackling how to create a bigger and louder customer experience through some very, very basic principles, which are brilliant. Sean's latest book, Shift, explores 19 practical ideas grounded on the science of behavioral change and how it can really impact a company's marketing strategy, company's business marketing strategy. So I'm excited to talk about that, break it all down, and let's dive right in. Sean, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming, man. I think marketing gets the connotation that you got to put a nice picture with a nice slogan and then a headline, and then see what fits. But it goes well beyond that.
Well, you can do it that way, but then don't be mad at me when it doesn't work. Don't punish the marketing firms when it doesn't work. There's no. I like to say to my executives, my clients, that are frustrated with marketing, I'll say, well, you put an admin assistant that you couldn't figure out what to do in charge of marketing, or your niece or your nephew that graduated from college with a marketing degree, you put them in that role in marketing, and then you're disappointed. Would you ever hire a CFO out of college or make your admin the CFO? Would you ever make somebody like that your SVP of sales, or your head of customer experience, or your head of any operational function? No, you'd never do it. So many executives put the wrong person into that seat and then complain that it's not a serious business entity. So shame on you if that's what you've done. It's time to fix it.
Yeah. The hiring it's one of the backbones. It's actually one of the most common problems that I run into whenever we're doing one-to-one consulting and that sort of thing. It's somebody creates a job role for a specific person, as opposed to having a role and then having filled by that person, where I think, even marketing at a broader sense, plays into that. You have to, you got to have the right message. It doesn't matter if it's for a product, for a brand, for a job role, specific position. Yeah. And then play into that.
You've got to pivot.
Yeah.
The underskilled, undertrained people will always talk about themselves out. And if you'll pivot and understand what the customer's needs are, then you can talk to them about them. You don't talk about yourself. You can talk and share what they need to know. And that's a pivot. It's easy to think about, like if you were on a date with a significant other, and your first date, if all you did was talk about yourself, you'd probably never have a second date, right? But if you talk about them, if you ask them questions, if you learn about them, if it's a dialogue, that second date might happen. Well, why do we in marketing just talk about ourselves constantly? Just talk.
Right.
Talk.
Right.
I don't care. I don't really care. I don't even know who you are. Why would I care about this messaging you're throwing at me and I'm getting smothered in it, right? So yeah, that's so much to think about. But I think one thing that your listeners would really get a value from, an immediate value from, is this idea of, how do you design a customer experience? How do you design an event or a plant tour or a big pitch meeting, or even your new office or a digital experience? How do you design that to be effective, and how do you design that to be a positive memory? So I'd love to dive into that if you think that.
So you're telling me that you can actually create a message. You can take an approach to marketing where you're tapping into somebody else's past experiences and then connect. Is that really what it's somewhat?
Fair enough. So one thing that's really critical about branding and marketing is understanding that people are interacting with your brand, whether you design that experience or not. They're going to have a memory of it. That whether you design it or it just happens, the customer's memory is going to occur. And that is something that's worth challenging and worth looking at and worth investing in. So we follow the models built around something called the peak end rule. Now I'm in
peak end rule.
Peak end rule. So it sounds like kind of like pecan rule, but that's how I remember it actually. But the peak end rule, meaning the peak of an experience and then the end of an experience. And this was put together with by a scientist named Daniel Kahneman, an amazing person. It was one of my goals in life is to meet him because he's impacted my life and my customers' life so much. And the model dictates that an event or an experience with your brand is not judged by the entirety of that experience, but it's judged by these two prototypical moments. And we have two selves, right? We have an experiencing self that's constantly present, and our experiencing self is in that designed moment. And then there's your remembering self. And your remembering self has these limited data points. So yes, I was in the sales pitch that you put together the whole time, but my remembering self next week, I'm going to remember two things. I'm going to remember the peak. I'm going to remember the end. And to give a great example of that, back in the college days, one of my friends in the fraternity wanted to go out with a specific woman, and the woman would only go out if her girlfriend could come along, and I came along. I don't know if it's a chaperone or just whatever. So the four of us went out to dinner, and we went to a restaurant called Nicky's. And I can remember the stress about going on this double date with somebody I didn't know. And I can remember the very last memory, and that was when my car was stolen.
Wow.
I cannot tell you about my experience in the restaurant. I can't tell you the food I had. I can't tell you about the music. I can remember the stress of the setup blind date, double date, and I can remember the car being stolen, right? So that's my peak experience, was my emotional state, and then the car, right? The last thing that happened. So it's not just that I had that bad experience. It's that I could only remember a few things about that experience. We probably had good service. In fact, the business owner was helpful in calling the police and trying to take care of me, got us rides home way before Uber, right? Got us taxis. And the owner was very pleasant, did all the things they should have done. But that's not what I remember. And I never went back to that restaurant, by the way. But, psychology teaches us that we can only be present, and we're present in little 3-second chunks. Like whatever was said 3 seconds ago is already in the past, and you're only present current, right? Is current. So if you think about it like this, in a given month, there's 600,000 present moments. How many moments can you remember, Raphael, from last month? There were 600,000 of them. I mean, you should remember most of them, right?
Right.
But you can't. You can't. You can probably remember some highlights. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna poke fun with you here. What can you remember a highlight from that last month, or an event that you went to?
A highlight from last month. Yes.
All right. Yes. You gonna share it, or do we have to all guess?
Yeah, no, I'll share it. I was in Tampa Bay.
So you probably had there was a moment that was just a lot of fun that you remember, and then you might remember, as you left Tampa. So, you're experiencing self, your present moment, just can't manage all that. So your brain simplifies it, parses it down to the peak and the end. So if you think about storytelling, it's another subject that marketing is such a common thing, right? Storytelling is defined in a certain way that, there are things that exist. That's the start. There's something that changes and threatens the status quo. It's the middle. And then there's the resolution of the story, and that's the end. So endings are so important. So of the two areas I would tell any executive who's listening or any business person is really focus on endings, because we are just wired that way. The Kahneman research was fabulous. He took two patients who both had the same procedure. They were both painful. It was the same painful procedure. They were about 10 minutes. The procedure was about 10 minutes long. Patient B was exposed to an extra 3 minutes of discomfort, pain, but it was lower level. Instead of being an 8 on that scale of 10, it was a 4 on that scale of 10, just 2 or 3 more minutes. So patient B actually experienced 13 to 14 minutes of pain, of discomfort. So more pain than patient A. But when he asked patient A and patient B, who experienced more pain, actually said they had a better experience. How's that even logical? Well, the peak end explains that, right? So patient A remembered that high level of pain that just turned off. Patient B remembered the high level of pain, but it wasn't so bad at the end, right? So that's what they remembered. So the journey, and it's not that we want to create misery for our clients or our prospects, but if you've got a customer service recovery problem, you've got a ticked off customer in your store, in your location, or online, what they're going to remember isn't the whole journey of being angry. They're going to remember what the peak was, hopefully the solution, and the very end. How did you treat them in the end? I had a problem with a vendor. It was somebody I'd bought it was a kind of a tchotchke, like a little notepad or whatever. And the CEO, I'm sure an assistant did it, but the CEO sent me a little small gift and a letter that just said, we always seek to exceed our customers' expectations, but occasionally we fail. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with us and letting us resolve the problem. That's my memory. I can't even remember what the thing was I bought. I remember the gift. The gift was a little keychain and this letter. I remembered the end of the journey. So, in business, design your high point. The high point, the memory bias for the high point, those peak moments, they're going to be emotional. I remember the father-daughter dance at my daughter's wedding. I remember that was a peak for me. Had really nothing to do with the wedding, right? That was the party after. And then, there's these peak bias moments. So focus on that peak bias, design that moment. And there's tools, storytelling tools that you can use. Video is a great tool. Create a peak moment, because video can use acting and talent and edits and all these tools to design an experience that's exciting and memorable. And then the end of the story, right? The peak and the end. So then the end, that recency bias. What was the last bite of my meal? Is that what I remember? No, I remember my car was stolen, right? So design these experiences, invest your money, not in the whole experience, but invest your money primarily to design a peak and an end. And you're going to have prospects that walk away with a better memory, or customers that walk away with a better memory than your competitors. It gives you a competitive advantage to think about this psychology, the framework that we're offering here. So amazing stuff. Science can teach us so much about how to improve our businesses. As you say, Raphael, have processes. So here's a process you can use to design a customer experience. Process 1, design the emotional high, the peak. Process 2, design the end. What's the last step? And one thing that's important about this is this works not in an ongoing 10-year relationship, right? This works in an event where there's a beginning and there's an end. There's a beginning of the search.
Which is, that tends to be the case for most, marketing materials anyways, right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
So one of my worst foibles, Raphael, is I get excited about this stuff. I start going, I start talking, and I can see all kinds of questions and ideas. Either that or you were thinking about lunch. I can't really tell.
No, I think it's fascinating. I mean, my background is again, it's psychology, right? And I get how important it is to connect to those already built-in wirings that we have. And if you design your message, in a fashion that's going to tap into the memories, or it's going to spark something up from a pleasant memory of the past, right? For somebody, I see the value, and I see how important it is for something like that to be in place in order to make that connection and create that sense of relationship right away. I said a lot of words to say relationship, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's you want to build that sense of connection, of familiarity with whatever it is. For example, a restaurant, right? Sitting at a restaurant, having a peak moment. That's why we see commercials. I think the last commercial on a restaurant I saw, there was somebody giving somebody else a ring in a real nice setting with a really nice meal, right? So that would be an example of a peak, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. And that will be the memory. They're not going to remember your food, right? So as a restaurateur, shouldn't I be ticked off because I'm about the food? No. Yeah. You're selling a moment in time. You're selling a space. You're renting a table for a period of time And then, yes, there's food there, of course, and that should complement and support. And remember the point of view, right? So the point of view is what did the customer want? Did the customer want the 18-course most beautiful meal ever in history? No, they wanted you, they trusted you to create a peak experience. Now, if at the end of that peak experience, your staff's numbskull, they come up and say, I can't believe you did this here. They, walking out the door, nobody opens it, or maybe even they slam the door in front of your face. If you ruin the end of the experience, like in this case, I love the example. So go outside, look in the parking lot, make sure this guy's car is not getting stolen, for example. If I'm just
have a camera out there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, make sure the end of the experience is going to be a good one, and design that experience. Have the movie Birdcage always cracks me up. I love it, and there's this moment where the Robin Williams character goes over and says, savoring for coffee. The whole thing of the restaurant that gives you a little dessert or a little gift, a little reward at the end. That's a good demonstration, perhaps, of making sure the end experience is designed. But it has to be authentic, right? It has to be something that really is who you are, who your business is.
I want to bring it back and simplify it a little bit. I know we're talking about building an emotional high and then designing the end, right? Yes. So taking, for example, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you're in real estate, if you're in, fitness, it doesn't matter what it is, all right? Find the emotional high of something, and then design the end. Can you clarify? I think we got the emotional high part somewhat figured out, but can you clarify a little bit on designing the end?
Oh, absolutely. So in a restaurant, there's this idea of an amuse-bouche, right? Just a little thing to amuse your mouth, a little taste that you enjoy. That's a good example of a designed ending, perhaps. A bad example is we put a mint on the plate with the bill. Well, that's a terrible end. Why would you want the bill to be the last memory, right?
Yeah.
And putting a peppermint on top of it doesn't make me go, oh, great. And what riles me as a consumer of restaurants is when I've been treated by a surly server the whole time who didn't have a minute of interest in me. And then at the end, of course, what do? Mr. Cortez, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, yes.
We sure hope you'll come back. I've really enjoyed my time with you. Like, you didn't say a word to me all day.
The mood comes in.
Yeah,
yes.
So those are, don't lie, be authentic. Unless you're, I think, what's the restaurant in Chicago? Ed DeBevick, I think. Well, that's their shtick, is to be surly. So unless you're doing that, don't pretend at the end you can do one nice thing and then have a great experience. We recently purchased a house, and we got the last experience I got with them was brilliant. They gave me a keychain that had, didn't have their realty company logo on it. It had the zip code of the city where I'd purchased the house on the keychain. No reference to the realty company, because I don't care about the realty company. I care about the house and the place I bought it, in the city and the environment. They gave me that, and they gave us a nice size gift certificate to a really nice restaurant in the area. So my last experience with them is the keychain and the experience at the restaurant. Now, subsequent to then, taxes, and I'm disorganized, and so I had to call them. And Crystal, who wasn't going to make any more money on me, she got me the documents that I needed to do my taxes when she didn't have to. She got me the information, and she was pleasant, and she was prompt. That's a designed end experience. The end of the experience doesn't have to be the mint on the bill, right?
Yeah.
But there is recency, right? There's a bias toward recency. So, and that's one reason you can have a 10-year customer relationship, and then it just goes kerflooey because there's nobody remembering 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Remember the 60,000 present moments you have a month. Well, multiply that times 10 years. I don't know, that's a big number. It's all I can think. But 6 million, it's a big number. So I'm not remembering, the customer's not remembering what you did right 3 years ago. You remember it because it was an emotional peak, because you were so excited about what you had done and you knew you did the right thing, right? But the customer doesn't get that. So that's an argument for, these last bites of your meals have to reoccur. You have to design them, and it may even be subsequent to the event happening. So yeah, I hope that gives a little more practicality to it. Maybe it gave more practicality than what.
No, it's absolutely. It's crystal clear, and it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. One thing that happens, Sean, quite a bit is that we do we have the tendency, and this is all businesses, right, have the tendency to do a lot of follow-up to get the business, and you follow up and you follow up and you follow up, and then eventually you get the business, right? You go through the process and then the follow-up ends. There's no real relationship building strategy or
right.
actions after the fact. And I think, what you're talking about, designing the end, it's brilliant. It's a simple concept, but it's brilliant.
So there's a good example,
especially because of the principle of recency. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, perfect. The idea of bringing in the wrong person to run your marketing, or being frustrated with marketing, a quick question to ask yourself is this not something that marketing could be doing for you? Designing what happens after the salesperson is done. So the salesperson is motivated to do what? Sell. I think it's inherent to the name, right? Sell. Salesperson. That's why they call it sales. That's their goal. You've designed comp to incite them to pursue sales. You've done everything you can do to focus salespeople on this week, this month, this quarter's sales plan. So once that sale is done, unless they take time away from selling and achieving the next goal, then it's required by the process that's been set up that no follow-up occurs. This is where marketing should step in, right? You want your sales folks back. You don't want your sales folks doing all the subsequent stuff. So no, this is a scale question too. We work a lot in this emerging middle market space. So we've got separate marketing teams, sales teams, inside sales, outside sales. And in the best of cases, we have a customer service team. We're doing some tremendous work right now around customer service, because this is the kind of thing that a customer service team can focus on. Marketing should design it, build it, understand the strategy, measure it, but then the customer service team can implement it because sales has stepped back, or they should have stepped back. Right? It's good for sales to step back. Another way to think about that is if you've got sales in charge of all the early stage stuff, which I think marketing should do, closing deals, which everybody thinks sales should do, and they typically ignore that marketing can do. And then customer success, if you've got sales in that early stage stuff and that late stage stuff, all you're doing is inflating your customer acquisition cost, right? So use marketing to design the customer experience. Let sales get back to selling.
I love it, man. I love it. And yeah, I think creating that that follow-up also as an experience, not just a reach back out to to the client to bring him real and back in for business. It's really a game changer, and unfortunately, I don't think it's done enough. I know it's not it's not built into our process. So we do it on a one-to-one basis whenever we have a relationship built and that sort of thing, but it's not really something, and I'm not proud to say this, but it's not really something that goes, as a standard operating procedure in our business to actually create or design an end for even as a follow-up strategy. It's not built into our business. And from the people that that we work with and we talk to on a regular basis, I don't think most people handle it that way either. So yeah, it's important. I think I like it.
Well said. I can tell you've helped a lot of people, gotten into a lot of businesses, and seen a lot of things. Isn't that what they call wisdom, Raphael?
Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know, right?
Right. No doubt. I can't argue that at all. Well, I hope this gives some insight for your executives, for your listeners, to when they hear this phrase, customer experience or customer success, that it gives them a focal point. It gives them a place to start thinking instead of just this big nebulous term. And again, our belief at FitzMartin is that you should have process underneath everything, but there's not a serious business person that doesn't get into process, right? So we think there should be science underneath it. So every good marketing firm has some sort of process. In fact, most of us will tout the process and talk about it. I'd challenge, when you're getting that pitch from your marketing firm, say, explain the rationale under that process. Give me the science that supports that process, because I don't know of a marketer. I'm sure there's some out there that are smarter than all the rest of us who have done their own science, but most of us are looking at a customer decision journey, that's been designed and typically attributed to McKinsey. So let's look underneath that. What's the science that helps you move people through the journey? For us, it's that trans-theoretical marketing model. And that comes from a whole other set of scientists, whole another conversation. But it's powerful in allowing us to understand what to do, when, and why. That's how we help our clients close deals that have been stagnant for years and years. So the other science is this Daniel Kahneman science, this peak end experience, this heuristic. And obviously every heuristic has a negative, right? It's this oversimplification of a really complicated process. Is there more to customer experience? Yeah, of course there is. But the heuristic says these are the two places that most matter. So spend most of your money there.
All right. So whenever somebody's thinking about customer experience, think about the emotional high, one, and then number two, think about designing the end of that customer experience.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, no, beautiful, man. I thank you so much. It's a simple concept, yet it's very, very powerful, just like you stated. So you are the principal of a company that's been in business for 30 years. And I mean, your expertise in marketing, it's, has solid foundations. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk to you a little bit more about what you do, where would they do that?
Yeah, FitzMartin.com, FitzMartin.com, FitzMartin.com is a great place to start. It's designed to, if you add a /free help, you'll see that there's lots of these tools that are available for you to download. We're not going to snag your email and mercilessly market to you. We're just going to try to help you. Another way you can get some help is go to Amazon.com and look for Shift. SHIFT, and Sean M. Doyle. And if you find that book, there's 2 chapters. I think chapters 4 and 5 are all about this process. How do you break things down and how do you understand? There's also some really helpful chapters for executives who are going to hire somebody. I give 4 questions that'll be helpful in the interview process to make sure you don't get that dud that disappoints you again. So we'll welcome you to enjoy that and get all the help you can. Or, you can always email me. I'm glad to help.
Cool. And we're gonna put all those notes on the notes of the show. So Shift, it's gonna be on Amazon, and that's your book as well. So that's amazing. It's amazing. Before I close it off, there's always a question that I like to ask because of the entrepreneur spirit that we all carry, right? If you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid?
Are my mother and father going to hear this?
Let's pretend they're not.
Live up to as good as you are. I should have pushed and discovered these processes, and instead of I think way too many entrepreneurs kind of do things because we can. We're smart enough, or we can, but gosh, the goal of focusing and setting something in place, setting a process in place, setting a positioning for your business in place, that's really the freedom is found inside the boundaries. I thought the freedom was found outside the boundaries, and that's wrong. That's just not true. Freedom is found inside the boundaries. It's true spiritually. I'm a Christian, so living inside the boundaries of what the Bible teaches, that gives freedom. I'm a marketer. I live inside the boundaries of the trans-theoretical theorem of behavioral change. That gets freedom. You know, there's a great study by the American Academy of Landscape Design where they put a playground on an empty lot and they watched kids and they just played around the playground for a minute. Then they put fences on that lot and the kids played in all four corners. They had more room to play inside the boundary. So that's probably the best thing I can offer you.
I love it. I love it. Well, Sean, thank you so much for stopping by and dropping those nuggets of wisdom. I think it's a really, really great approach and simplified approach to marketing, especially to all those of us who are not, we're not experts on marketing. We're always questioning, okay, what works, what doesn't work, what can, and we're thinking colors, we're thinking schemes, we're thinking logos, we're thinking websites, we're thinking all kinds of stuff besides the things that are really going to create that engagement with the prospect or with the customer, with the client, right? So I love it. Customer experience, think about the emotional high, and then design the end. Love it. Simple as that.
Perfect.
Well, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure having you, brother.
I hope your experiencing self enjoyed the conversation, and I hope your remembering self has two points of remembrance a week from now. Maybe we should call all the listeners in a month and see what they remember.
Exactly, right? Do you remember an emotional high from that moment? And then what did you leave with? See, I'm trying to design the end. I'm trying to design the end right now. I'm gonna just
when the guy finally got off when the guy got off the microphone, that was the best part.
No, I wouldn't say that. No, you've been great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing all that wealth of knowledge with us.